Hey everyone, it's Lexie, and today's video I'm going to be doing my September wrap-up. So over the month of September I ended up finishing 5 books this month, which I thought was pretty good. Some of them were quite lengthy, so I'm pretty proud about that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So the first book that I ended up finishing this month was the Tales and Teacups book club pick for the months of September and October, which was Reconstructing Amelia by Kimberly McCreight. And so this is basically kind of a thriller novel. So it follows a woman named Kate who is a single mom, and she is called to her daughter's school. Basically, she gets a call from the principal saying that her daughter Amelia is being suspended for cheating. And so when she goes to the school to pick her daughter up, she finds that her daughter actually supposedly jumped off the school building and committed suicide. So this kind of is like a dual storyline. So we kind of follow Kate as she's trying to reconstruct Amelia and like the last days leading up to her death, and then we also get Amelia as well and what was leading up to kind of the event that ended her life. So I kind of took this as a Mean Girls with like on steroids, with a little bit of a death mixed in here with murder. So I did really actually quite enjoy this. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's not my favorite thriller. It's kind of compared to Gone Girl, but it's not. I think it's really different. So I think if you really liked Mean Girls, I think you really would like this. It just kind of showcases that Mean Girl spirit and just kind of that attitude, and encompasses just kind of clubs and kind of cliques and all that. So I did really like that. And kind of putting together the pieces of Amelia that Kate was kind of discovering as everything kind of unfolded. So I really enjoyed that. So if you are still interested, you still have the month of October to participate, which I will do my discussion video for at the end of the month. But yeah, I really like this. It was a solid 4 out of 5 stars read for me. So next I also ended up marathoning through the last of the Poison Study trilogy by Maria V. Snyder. So that included Magic Study and Fire Study. So this basically follows a girl named Yelena who is basically awaiting her sentence in the dungeon to be hanged because she murdered someone. But on the day of her execution, she's given the choice. She can either be hung, or she can be the kind of the commander's poison taster, and that's where the series takes off from there. I think it's best to go into this series not knowing too much, and so I loved the first book. I was so surprised by it, and I'm not the biggest fan of YA fantasy, but I was really pleasantly surprised with the first book. I like really loved it, and so I picked up these next two. It really bothers me that this one is not a matching cover, but I couldn't find that on Amazon, so that's okay. It was only like $3 too. But the second book was probably my least favorite out of this trilogy, because I know there's further books in this series, like in this world. But so I gave this one a like 3.75 out of 5 stars. I found that some of the characters that we got introduced to, they weren't really fleshed out enough. I didn't feel like I actually could I felt like an arm's width from them, and especially Yelena's brother Leaf, like he kind of has a problem with Yelena, and they try to explain it, but I'm like, I don't agree with that. So we didn't really get to learn more about him, and I felt like this book was kind of all over the place. It didn't really know what it wanted to be plot wise. But other than that, like, I still enjoyed it. It was a, like I said, 3.75, not my favorite. But then I also, like I said, right after that I picked up Fire Study, which I actually enjoyed a lot more. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a good conclusion, and kind of the issues and kind of the critiques that I had for the second one are kind of resolved in here, which I really enjoyed. This isn't my favorite YA trilogy, but it was really fun and unique and different, and it just introduces a new kind of magic system that I haven't really seen a lot from. So yeah, this isn't my favorite YA series. I think it could have ended with the first book. But it was still a fun kind of series to marathon through, because I haven't done that in a really long time. So I was happy I could do it with this one. And lastly, this is the book that me and my aunt are reading. We started our own little book club because she would always ask me for book recommendations, and then she's like, we need to do a book club. So that's currently what we're doing now. So for the months of September and October, we will be reading Beneath a Scarlet Sky by Mark Sullivan. And so this is loosely based off a true story of a man named Pino, who lived in Italy during World War II, and his story. So he basically was, first of all, his one thing was that he helped smuggle Jewish people and kind of Allied pilots, those people, over the Swiss Alps back into kind of a neutral territory. And then he also ends up becoming a spy for a very powerful Nazi official. So it kind of follows his story there and kind of his love story with Anna and all that. So this wasn't necessarily my favorite historical fiction. It's often compared to like The Nightingale and All the Light We Cannot See, but when I compare it to that, it falls kind of short in terms of how the writing was. And I think in particular the writing for The Nightingale and All the Light We Cannot See is beautiful, and this one just wasn't up to that standard. In particular, I found the dialogue to be very kind of like awkward and just choppy in some parts. I found some parts to be very much rushed, that were very important, and then some of the other stuff were like the important stuff was kind of dusted over, and so some of the non-important stuff was kind of dragged on. So it did have a bit of a pacing issue, but overall I learned a lot, because a lot of the World War II books, or even what I learned at school, really focused on kind of Central Europe, and this, I never really knew what was going on in Italy during this time, so it was a very much a good history lesson for me. It's because it wasn't really something that I was aware of. But yeah, I think like it's a good World War II book, but it's not the best, but it was very insightful, and it was, I think, like 100 pages longer than it needed to be, but nonetheless it was okay, and I think my aunt's liking it a little more than I am, but yeah, it wasn't bad. So it was an interesting, I learned a lot, was basically what I'm getting at. The story is not up to the standard of like The Nightingale, but I did learn a lot. And then lastly, I also ended up listening to the audiobook for Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and so I've been feeling very nostalgic recently, so I've been wanting to kind of reread some of my favorite series, and the audiobook for the Lunar Chronicles in particular are really well done. The narrator is just really good. So I remember when I first started reading the series, I listened to the first book as an audiobook, and then I read the remainder of the series just like with a physical book. So that's what I'm gonna be doing now. So that's what I'll be kind of working on towards the end of the year. But of course I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. This is probably one of the few YA like fantasy series that I'm totally invested in. The narrator does such an amazing job of having a distinct voice for each character and just kind of bringing it as like a performance. And it was something that I was always looking forward to when I would like get in the car in the morning to go to and from work, so that was always a plus. So I definitely enjoyed revisiting this world again, and I cannot wait to continue on. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.